So, when you hear the word incense, what pops into your head? Probably something like, sacred rituals, maybe fragrant smoke rising in a church or a temple. But what if I told you that 1,000 years ago, you were just as likely to find it in a doctor's medical bag? Yeah. Today, we're going to dive into the surprisingly hidden life of incense in the early Middle Ages. All right, so our story here, it really kicks off like any good mystery, right? It starts with this one single piece of evidence that is just baffling. It doesn't seem to fit anywhere. Okay, take a look at this. What you're seeing here is a page from a medical handbook, and it's old, like 1,200 years old. And right there, tucked in between almost 50 other recipes for all sorts of remedies, a scribe carefully wrote down this one. It's titled Thymiama, which is, you guessed it, a recipe for incense. And right there, that's the big question, isn't it? I mean, what is a recipe for holy smoke doing in a doctor's handbook? The really wild part is that everything around it is completely medical. There are no prayers, no religious notes, nothing like that, just practical remedies. So why this? It just feels totally out of place. Now, at first, you might think, okay, maybe this was just a fluke. But, as researchers started digging a little deeper, they realized this wasn't just some random oddity. No, this was the start of a much, much bigger pattern. So, was it a mistake? Did some scribe just have a blank space to fill at the end of the book? Or was there something more deliberate going on? Well, it turns out this was not an isolated case, not by a long shot. A researcher named Claire Burridge went digging through all these medieval medical manuscripts, and she found, well, not just one, she found seven. 7 distinct recipes for incense, all of them deliberately placed right inside medical books. And here's the thing. You can see for yourself that these weren't accidents. Look at these other examples. These recipes are smack in the middle of other medical texts. This isn't a scribe just filling up a blank page at the end. No way. This was completely intentional. These recipes were seen as part of a doctor's library. Okay, so we've established this was intentional. It's not a mistake. So the next clue in our little mystery has to be the ingredients themselves. I mean, what on earth was in this so-called medical incense that made it so important? So let's take a look at the shopping list, shall we? You've got some familiar names, sure, like frankincense and myrrh, but then you see things like aloes wood, camphor, and musk. And let me tell you, these were incredibly rare, incredibly valuable substances. Musk, for example, it came from a tiny gland on a specific type of deer found only in the Himalayas. This wasn't stuff you could just go forage for in a European forest. These ingredients had to travel the entire world to get there. I mean, we're talking about the very definition of exotic. These ingredients paint a picture of an absolutely massive global trade network. We're talking about spices and resins traveling thousands and thousands of miles, from Southeast Asia, from the Himalayas, from East Africa, all the way to a monastery or a doctor's pouch in what's now Switzerland or France. It's incredible. And as the research itself puts it, this is hard evidence of a really dynamic, interconnected world. This completely shatters that old idea of the isolated Dark Ages. This was a time of active, developing global trade. Okay, so let's recap. We've got these precious, globally sourced ingredients showing up on purpose in medical books. Which brings us back to the biggest question of all. Was this stuff for a religious ritual, or was it for a medical remedy? Well, the surprising answer is, it was for both. We love to put things in neat little boxes, right? Incense goes in the religion box. Medicine goes in the science box. But what this shows us is that in the early medieval world, those boxes they didn't really exist. The exact same substance you'd use to purify an altar could be the active ingredient in an ointment you'd put on a wound. And this is the absolute key takeaway. Finding these recipes in medical handbooks means that incense itself was seen as a multi-purpose tool. Its ingredients weren't just there to create a nice, holy smell. No, they were considered powerful, active medicine. And if you need a smoking gun, well, here it is. This right here is a 9th century recipe for a potion to treat epilepsy. Now look closely at that long list of ingredients. Right there, mixed in with herbs like parsley and betony, what do you see? Frankincense and myrrh. And they're not there to be burned, they're listed as ingredients to be put into the actual drink. And the texts are just full of these examples, each one showing a totally different way to use these ingredients. So first, you've got fumigation. Sure, it could be used to expel a demon, but it was also based on the medical science of the time. This idea that a fragrant, purifying smoke could drive away the bad air or miasma that they thought caused disease. Then second, you have ointments. We actually found a recipe for ear pain that specifically says to mix myrrh with honey and aloe and apply it directly. And third, you have internal medicine. Other treatments called for myrrh and frankincense to be eaten or drunk as part of a potion. So you see, the lines between what's a ritual and what's a remedy were just completely blurred. So where does all of this leave us? What does it all mean? Well, this whole discovery, it's not just about incense. It really forces us to rethink our entire picture of health and science and faith in the medieval world. The key idea to really grab onto here is that incense was what we'd call a multi-purpose substance. A great way to think about it is like baking soda is for us today, right? We use it for baking, we use it for cleaning, we use it to get smells out of the fridge. It's one thing with tons of different uses. For people back then, incense was exactly like that. Powerful in the church and powerful in the infirmary. So the ultimate takeaway from this whole deep dive into these ancient manuscripts is actually pretty simple, but it's also really profound. For the people of this time, incense wasn't just for the soul. It was also for the body. Healing the physical self and tending to the spiritual self were not separate activities. They were two sides of the same coin. This just goes to show you how deeply intertwined the sacred and the scientific were. A substance could be holy because it was medically powerful, and it could be medically powerful because it was seen as holy. It's a completely different way of seeing the world, and these old recipes are like a little window looking right into it. And that really leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? If something we thought we understood, something as common as incense, was holding this incredible secret, well, what other secrets about how people actually lived and thought and healed are still out there, just hiding in plain sight in the margins of some ancient book?